So, remember a couple years ago, I said that there will be a time when the rubber is going to meet the road and there won't be a chance for people to come back from where they are. I know my hair is kind of crazy, but I don't care. Okay? When you look at your Facebook community, you're looking at the future, you're looking at the past, and you're looking at the present. Okay? When you see what your friends are doing, when you see what your family is doing, and they're suffering, like suffering astronomically, and they're taking so many things, they're going to the hospital, they are not changing the way they do things. Are you going to change? Are you going to change? When you see that hurricanes are going to be hitting, again, the northeast up there by Maine and all of that, and you know that there's other hurricanes are brewing, and even if hurricane season is over by November something, you know there's always spring, and there's always another hurricane season. And so it's not just the crazy weather that's going to get people, it's the frequencies. And so it's not just the crazy weather that's going to get people, especially in the areas they live in. Are people planning to move away from the coastlines, or are they just waiting for the next hurricane to take them out? Are people deciding that it's time to change the way they do things, or are they waiting for the next disease to take them out? You're getting the gift of insight and future thinking. Are you going to squander that away, waste the information because your lifestyle is too important, that you can't even possibly contemplate changing? The rubber is meeting the road. Oh yeah, the rubber is meeting the road. So many different people out there have been diagnosed and have been going through treatments, and they're giving months to live, weeks to live, not even years to live. Okay? It's pretty grim out there. Some people will just die suddenly. Other people might get the luxury to get diagnosed. It's those that are really skinny that probably die suddenly because there's nothing to treat. There's nothing more to treat. That's what I'm saying. You know, those that have more weight to them and that have been from stronger stock, once you get diagnosed, that is your indicator that you have a chance to redirect because you have the substance. But when you don't get the luxury of being diagnosed because you don't have any more, you don't have as much of the substance to convert, then everything is great until it's not. Is that the way to go out? Well, I guess some people say that's the way to go out. Why suffer through the diagnosis and making a choice if you survive the treatment? Huck, I would not want to be faced with that kind of choice. And so I say, you know, if you are a forward-thinking person and you can set up your life where you kind of know that you don't have as much damage to yourself, set a plan to be sick. Plan to get a job that's like maybe working less hours or work from home. Cut down your lifestyle so you're not having to pay for all those things out there. And start the process. What does that mean? Well, when the frequencies change and you start getting disease, this is when you have to go and cough and sneeze and blow your nose and pull out the demons. And those demons I've been pulling out ever since 2016. I was pulling out demons when you think about it. As soon as I started writing the book, before I even wrote the book, I was pulling out demons. Before I even I'm trying to remember back then when I was still doing all those different supplements and stuff. And I was doing, and then, could I do the J juice at the time? I might have been doing the J juice at the time. Then I finally got off the supplements. And now it's like, geez, it's almost hazy to think about, remembering not everything in the beginning. But I was even pulling out demons way back in 2016. Okay? Because once you start activating your immune system and you allow your immune system to activate, you don't treat any of the symptoms, and you can afford not to treat your symptoms, and you have to figure out that for yourself. Okay, that's when the process will start. And in this environment, you'll get the luxury of getting your immune system activated almost every week because the frequencies are that insane. This last night, yeah, I'll read that. I couldn't even barely hold my phone. I would get on my phone to play, and it would hurt. My hands would hurt. So there's definitely more of the energy coming out of the phone. A lot more energy. And I feel it in my hands. So yes, the cell phones definitely have those frequencies, but also the cell towers and the antennas. So if you don't have a cell phone or Wi-Fi in your house, okay, you still have to deal with your environment, your community. What are you going to do? Sit in a Faraday cage all day long? No, that's not even realistic. You have to be able to assimilate to the environment. Oh yeah, I felt the difference in my phone. Yeah, the frequencies are different. And I feel them. Because I would be able to be on my phone. There were certain times last night that I could handle, play with my phone and it wouldn't hurt. And there are other times where I had to put it down and put it away from me because it hurt. Oh yeah, I know. And it's not a coincidence people are getting different diagnosable conditions or a resurgence on what they already have. All right? And so the rubber is meeting the road. So I'm going to read you what I wrote last night, and I'll go just this way instead of the other way. I'll read you what I wrote this morning, not last night. So yesterday, I definitely felt the frequencies after my Facebook Live, and I knew I had to go eat something. Okay? So I had to go eat something. And so, but I talked to my husband. He was saying he was coming home a little bit early, or he's coming early because the timing, and he has 2 bass fishing tournaments to go to, the last 2 of the season. And so I'm like, okay, he'll be home at some point. And so I went downstairs to go make me some food because I was hungry. And then I looked and I was like, okay, I really wanted to not get used to buying so much food because you have to either figure out how to what do you call it? Ration food. What happens when food is so scarce? I mean, as it's going to. What happens if something happens and you have to make things stretch for whatever reason? But why would you? You never know. Shit happens all the time. Make sure you have a backup, but not so much. You're not hoarding so much. But you're not like, there's no food in the house where you have to depend upon somebody else to give you food. It's good to have at least a 14-day supply of food, and think about it as a backup. And can you make 14 days stretch with the food that you have? And so that's kind of the rule of thumb, is to have a 14-day supply of food as a backup in case something happens. But I wanted to see with what I bought last weekend and the weekend before, because my body knew it needed to prepare for some major energy shift. I had so much meat, like so much meat. I have rice, oatmeal, cheese, cream, cereal, milk, and fruit juice anyways, and sugar, and flour, and eggs. Okay, so I had so much of that. I'm like, dude, I can live on this for the next 14 days if I had to. Okay? And so I went and I reorganized my freezer and my refrigerator. I know what I have, and I know what I can live on, and I'm going to spend the next 7 days living on what I just had for the last 2 weeks after stocking up for this frequency shift. That I was able to cook for my husband and protein load him during his time of sickness. Okay? And so, we are in extremely trying times. I mean, extremely. And I had predicted this day would come when the rubber is meeting the road. And the rubber has met the road. And so you have to figure out how well does one utilize resources. And going out to eat is so expensive. Eating at home, groceries are expensive, is probably the most cost effective. And I'm telling you, people need to be sick and they need to sleep and they need to stay home. Okay? And so, and then, so after getting my fridge all organized and every food accounted for and planned until next Friday, I ate my food and I went down for a nap. And when I woke up, oh my gosh, my husband came home and we were chatting for a bit. And then I think I went downstairs and I made him some leftovers. And I felt my stomach rumbling and oh my God, I had to release so much stuff. It was like crazy. It was like waking up from sleeping overnight and waking up to releasing demons. It was like, holy shit. It was a lot. And so I'm telling you, so that's right, web-like substances. So there was a lot of mycoplasma. It almost looked like it was like a candida-like substance like we had, but it wasn't like orange, like people were putting in the jars back in the 60,000 person group. If you remember that, I think Kelly Harris put some kind of web-like substance in the jar and it was floating looking like a lionfish that you'd see in the ocean. Well, these web-like substances, they look like little pods of web-like, like a mycoplasma, was coming out. Yellowish and brownish. No angry, choleric colors. There's a lot of mucus when you think about it. Thank gosh, it just kept coming out like a major purge. And it was all liquidy, like major purge. I felt my stomach and everything coming out and even more than usual. So I'm telling you, the way I have in my book, this is what will save you after you pay your dues. And I'll tell you, even the last 7 years of all the hives and the headaches and the respiratory and the feeling of where you can't hardly even move and the fatigue. Yeah, and you don't know if it's gonna be worse the next time or if it's gonna be better. You have to have faith that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, eating all food, releasing the demons, resting when you need to. Yeah, when people are feeling so bad, they get so scared that they think it's gonna be worse the next time around. It might be, or it might be less. It just depends on what's in your immune system. Are you taking care of yourself or are you compounding the issue with more treatments? And so, yeah, I'm itching it right now. So that's what people are facing is what they do today, how they respond to disease today will then determine their future. And every single time your body tries to purge, you don't want to keep adding more demons to your body. You want to release those demons and build up your parent cells and your maturity. Not aging out, but maturity. But you keep taking the shortcuts, you'll compound the issue. What are the shortcuts? All the supplements, the detoxes, all the antibiotics, antifungals, antiparasitics, antibacterials, all of that causes more microbial offspring to develop and work against you. Okay? And so, I'm telling you, this is what will save you after you pay your dues. You must not only eat all food, but one must be so in tune to sleep and rest, release the way I have in my book, and start changing the way you do things. Granted, I used the last 7 years to release all the major demons plaguing me. However, when the energy shifts like it had since 9/11, getting hives, major diarrhea, pain and suffering is necessary. But the magnitude of pain and suffering is so much less than the last 7 years, every climate change or season change. I earned this last time of less pain and suffering. Okay? Oh yeah, I mean, it's not fun having a little bit of arm pain and back pain. It's not fun having a little bit of hives. I get little hives every so often, nothing major. But I'll tell you, just to let you know, people die or they get maimed by treating their disease from the hospital system. Because all those microbial babies develop an army against you. So when you're getting cut into, those babies have been maimed. That's the what gets replicated is the damage that's done to you by the hospital system, by the holistic system. And when you're doing drugs that are causing the offspring to be converted into whatever persona you have on the surface and even under the surface that comes out when people do drugs or when they drink, yeah, you're replicating anger. If there's so much anger in your background, you're replicating disease. There's so much disease in your background. You're replicating depression and rage and all of that. And so just let you know, people die or get maimed by treating their disease from the hospital system because all those microbial babies develop an army against you. And over time, that army just tears down your infrastructure, just like the weather is decimating third world countries from fires, floods, hurricanes, and tornadoes. The world is not what you think. And so people are like, well, you know, they've been given the gift of intellectual capability, of affluence. They've been given the gift of relatively okay health. They've been given the gift of their stature in the community. And everything is manageable to them. And if they have a disease, it gets treated, right? Until they get a major diagnosable condition because the frequencies became even more aggressive, that the growth became so influential. People get diagnosed one day and they die the next day. The fact that you can get a diagnosis and they give you a certain amount of time, like, well, if you have enough substance to you, they say, well, we can treat it. Once they say they can treat your disease, that's your cue to say, oh God, maybe I shouldn't get myself treated. Because the next time the frequencies change, those treatments will turn and metastasize into the army against you. If you get a diagnosis and then they tell you you need to treat it, that means you have a chance to treat it and turn into something later where you can't come back from, or to eat and release those demons out of your asshole, literally, and face now change in your life, because you're going to have to. Because once you get diagnosed, that means that the programming the system gave you wore off. And now it's just a matter of time when the programming destroys you, when the self-destruct finally gets triggered. So that's a fucking revelation right there. I gotta write that down so I can remind myself that. Because I'll tell you, once the system knows that they can treat you, that's when you have to make a choice. And so I'll say treatment, and I'll do little decision points. And either yes or no. And if you do yes, your lifespan will be cut short. Lifespan cut short. No, you have a chance to save yourself, because my information will then come into play. And you're going to have to weigh out the pros and cons, and you have to go up against your friends and your family who will be like, oh my God, you're not treating your disease. And that's when you will know what you're made of. And that's when my information will be so important. Because then they'll be like, well, if you don't treat your disease, well, you got to look at what stage are you in? Are you in stage 1, stage 2? Or are you just diagnosed with some kind of like cold or flu? But I'll tell you, every single time you treat your disease, you put another nail in your coffin. Whether it's, herbal remedy or oncology or cannabis, it's another nail in your coffin. So when you actually get diagnosed with something major, and they can say it's stage 2, now you're going to make a choice. Because you treat it, you'll end up being stage 3 or out of control. You know that's going to happen because you've seen it in your friends and family. But some people get disease and they don't have the cancer anymore. Now they're just, doesn't mean that the cancer hasn't caused them an aggressive aging process and losing memory on certain things, or other issues taking away their wholeness. You can't assume because somebody else got treated with disease and they don't have it anymore and they're still functioning, that they're not suffering from other things. You can't assume that. I mean, treating any disease is gambling. But eating all food and facing the pain and having the support system so you can go through that process and maybe it's time to quit your job, you have a better chance with food and facing pain and pulling out the crap than you do getting treated by the industry in this environment, especially in this environment. Because people who had been treated for disease probably were treated before this crazy climate change that happened ever since 2019, 2020. Now when you get treated with disease, it doesn't last very long. But if you have the body, it could last enough time. But remember, they're turning up the heat. The heat's becoming even more aggressive. So the time in between each diagnosis and each treatment will become shorter and shorter and shorter, no different than when you get diagnosed right off the bat. Your lifespan in between each diagnosis will become shorter and shorter because that's how this environment has been set up. You're not getting a lot of chances to treat disease. It's either you get diagnosed and die or you get diagnosed and draw it out, but then that's the suffering. The world is not what you think. I hope what I have written the last 7 years might encourage those of you who are not too far gone to make some changes. And I hope those who are too far gone not to reject this information because you decided my info was not for you. My info could wake up your relatives if you're going to be generous, if you're generous enough to give them a chance to explore this information. What I have noticed is those who say they cannot apply my information silently say to themselves, either resist my info and call me nuts or spread vicious rumors about me in hopes to scare people away from my info, or they just flat out ignore my info and keep silent and pretend everything is hearts and flowers and rainbows, basically denial. As you know, I do not agree with herbal remedies of all kinds or all kinds of drugs, and I have not hidden my distaste for the health and wellness industry, also known as the holistic allopathic world surgical system. However, I will always say if you need help or do not know what you're doing, if you are scared, please go see a doctor or consult a doctor before embarking on such an unpredictable, precarious journey. I am not two-faced. I also give you options, and I will never get in the way of your choices and make you wrong for them personally. Do your friends and family the same courtesy and give them options. Their lives depend on it. Okay? And so, yeah, if you are being faced to treat your disease, maybe now it's time to redirect. And so then I think about, when people say about, well, here we go. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Okay. And so as long as you have food to eat, you are not poor. You just know how to prioritize. Going into debt, buying food makes you irresponsible with money and lack of mature priorities. If anything in my house, we will always have food, always. In my opinion, all humans need wiggle room without going into debt to pay for food, which is why I buy drumsticks and beef patties and pork chops and cabbage and vegetables and carrots and onions and potatoes and cheese and tomatoes, rice and sugar and cream or coffee, oatmeal and cream and fruit juice. Once in a while, a treat. I eat spaghetti a lot. I like making my own bread, and I also buy butter, and I don't need alcohol. I don't smoke cigarettes, and I buy eggs 60 at a time. Of course, I have a lot of top ramen. You saw how much I had. I even gave a bag to one of my husband's friends. Because that's the diverse nutritional food supply that doesn't require so many extras, which means my husband can spend more on paying off his bills or acquiring baubles if he so chooses because he's working, and I know what I can survive on. Again, you can't eat money. You can't eat gold or designer clothing or your friends, and you can't eat trips. You need food. Once you release the demons and desires, you can live so nicely, and you don't have to kill yourself working so many hours to pay for demons and desires. You need to give yourself a chance to rest and take time off when needed. If you can't afford to be sick and take time off, you can't afford your lifestyle. Not everybody gets sick pay. If you have to work many hours in order to eat, you fucked yourself up somewhere. Okay? I'm telling you, living in this society, actually living, and even nicely, doesn't take a lot of money. But the reason why they have thrown so much money at people is because they need the advancement to build up the infrastructure for the future. They needed the minds, and they had to pay them very well. They needed people's motivation to advance humanity. There's so many different programming and campaigns all over the world and all over America. So many ones that you're not even aware of, that you're finally becoming aware of, and you can't even believe it, or you've demonized it. But they had to basically incentivize people to use their brain and reward them, give them prizes and give them recognition, or embarrass them if they decided to go against the system because they didn't have all the information. And so now we have all the innovation for the most part, and the system knows how to program people into whatever they need to program into. So many people are extra, not needed, redundant. And so now you'll be punished for your choices, your lack of evolution. But they'll make it nice for you because they've taught you this way to be consumeristic and highly affluent to where you won't make a change. You'll die in your affluence. Because can you imagine eating spaghetti if you're so used to eating sushi? I mean, right now, I was looking at some of the Facebook reels in Park Slope, the upper middle class over there in Brooklyn, under feet and feet of water. I went to Park Slope maybe 20 years ago. Somebody knew somebody that worked for, it's not Smith Barney, but one of those accounting agencies, very, an influential one, was an immigrant from some other place. And they were making a shit ton of money. Well, those accounting firms, redundant. We don't need so many accounting firms and CPAs and all of those, but they had them for reasons. We have so much redundancy. It's not going to be needed anymore. So those who cannot change and cannot cut down their lifestyle, it's not the weather and the floods. It'll be the frequencies in your disease and your lack of adaptability and your lack of change is what's going to screw you. So when people say, Jillian doesn't work, right? I've had people say, Jillian, you should go to work. I have people even in my world that I've since had them leave my world tell me, well, here's a job. Maybe you should go to OnlyFans, Jillian. Here's a job, and they're recommending job sites to me. Oh, I got so mad. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You're overstepping your boundaries here. When people say Jillian doesn't work, I work for my husband. I am more of an asset than a liability. And whatever extras I get, I earn them. My husband pays me for what he doesn't have to do. And I make sure he doesn't have to worry about me. And yes, I bean count. When I bean count, even in my body, mind, and spirit, when it comes to how much energy I expend and how much I'm able to take on and all that stuff, everything in the J world, as far as releasing demons and taking on substance, is all about bean counting. And yes, I bean count. Whatever I take from him, he can afford it plus extras. But I don't take advantage of him. Whatever he takes from me, I can afford it. But I can't afford the extras because I only can reproduce cells at a certain time or at a certain rate. What do you mean by extras? Some men think that they can just take whatever they want from their wives. What do you mean by that? Some men want to be screwed every single fucking day. And that's what these girls in Hollywood, you see Kanye West and all the other girls that are with these rich guys, what do you think they're doing with these men who are so highly sexualized? They have to give up their body to these men every single day, plus whatever else. How do you recoup those resources? Some men think and are feeling entitled. They should have sex in crazy ways, in all types of ways. 10 times a day. Do you realize that people that are human trafficked that get destroyed through all the customers, that's so much trauma to so many different body parts. How do you recover from that? And so this is the thing. If you're going to be a housewife, you better know your fucking boundaries. You have to know what you can afford to give to your husband or your wife. And people don't. So whatever I take from him, he can afford it plus extras. Whatever he takes from me, I can afford. And I cannot afford extras because I can only reproduce cells at a certain rate. And no one takes more than their fair share as far as what they can afford. And I'm telling you, men have been brought up to think that they can just take and have because they're married or they're boyfriend and girlfriend. No. husbands or wives, you don't have the right to take substance like that from your man because you're married to him or her. That's a partnership to me. Everything's about accounting, taking accountability. And you don't go into the partnership equally. Couples figure out what both can afford in body, mind, and spirit. And try not to take more than what the other person can afford. And that also means physical wise. You do not want to cannibalize your significant other. Read between the lines. The reason why people divorce, both sides have been such a liability to each other that even the assets can't make up for the liabilities. Why does one person die before the other person? Because the other person gave too much, more than they could afford. It's not the other person's fault because each person is responsible for how much they give and take. That's why people die before their significant other. They gave too much and they couldn't afford it, which is why when you entertain your children who are over 18, make sure they aren't bleeding you dry. Okay? So when people die before the other person, they have given up so many resources, whether it's in body. I'll tell you, again, the porn industry, people dying from cervical cancer, ovarian cancer, breast cancer, testicular cancer, anal cancer. You know why? Because there's so much kinetic energy damage to those sexual parts that these girls and boys don't recover because of how much damage has been done in their career, in their relationships. That's why I feel so sorry for the girls who are so in deficit now, being matched up with guys who don't have any boundaries, who've been taught they should just take whatever, and the girls are taught they should just give up whenever their husband or wife wants them to give it up. It's a battle, it's a war, even in relationships. And many of these girls are not prepared to survive the war. They're prepared to die in that war and have a bunch of children on top of that. Further taking away substance and resources that could keep them alive. That's why I feel sorry for these girls today who have been so overly sexualized by their mothers and their fathers and their community, and then they are being given away to predators who will take and take and take. But they'll manipulate and say, hey, you're my husband, you're my wife, you're my boyfriend, my girlfriend. You're supposed to do this. You're not supposed to deny me. Oh, yeah. I feel sorry for girls today, especially because they've been sexualized to such an extent. No different than someone who's a kept woman, no different than someone who is a sexual trafficking victim. And so accounting principles are also relevant in the J world. Are you an asset or a liability to your family, job, friendships, and your overall environment? I have developed bean counting methods to determine my worth. I have determined through line items general population go by as assets and liabilities. I am more of an asset to my husband and community than a liability in body, mind, and spirit, and even environmentally and financially. People just think, oh, I just stay home and I just play on the computer and spout about this and that, and I just watch TV and eat food and whatever, right? You don't realize that there is so much more than what goes on. And I'm letting you know how much more. Because people have assumptions. Okay? What's a line item? Plural line items. An item appearing on a single line in any schedule of information. Accounting, an item of revenue or expenditure in a budget or other financial statements or reports. Government, a budget appropriation. Logistics, one item on an order regardless of quantity. So I'm going to let you know how my husband's able to afford a nice boat and a nice truck and going bass fishing all the time, and even having to take a week off or less than a week off or different times to take care of stuff and not be completely bankrupt. We don't have health insurance. I don't have any medical needs. Emergency bill out of pocket if I injure myself or on my own property. When my husband had that scare, fell off the truck because he fainted during that time that there was a major energy conversion. He thought he had a heart attack. No, he didn't. He had some major acid reflux that really just scared the crap out of him. He went to the emergency room, $2,000 for the test and for being there for how many hours? When we paid that off. Has he had anything like that since? No. Last September, he was home for a week and I kept giving him chicken soup. He may have treated a little bit of his disease with NyQuil, but then this time around, this September, he was more fatigued, urgent poop, diarrhea, and ate food and slept. He's sleeping right now. And it wasn't as bad as it was last year. And so yeah, I mean, if I injure let's say I get in a car accident, well, whose fault is it? If they determine that's the other person's fault and they have no health insurance, I have medical payments. Okay. But since I don't really drive hardly at all, it's my husband. I should actually make sure I do have medical payments. I think I do. I don't know. I'll have to see. But anyways, either way, if something happens where he gets in an accident and it's somebody else's fault, we can sue for their liability. Okay. And so no health insurance, no medical needs, pay emergency bill out of pocket if I injure myself on my own property. Car insurance on one car, only have one car. I buy food instead of baubles or addictions or trips. So I don't socialize too much. I don't go on trips. I don't have any addiction to buying shiny baubles on Amazon or eBay or anything else. I really do want to, retrofit or update some parts of the house, but that'll happen at some point. And so no remedies or extravagant living to assuage boredom. So what do? I watch Netflix. I type on my computer. I read stuff. I learn stuff. I talk about it. I develop, a new book that's going to come out in probably 2030 or so. And so I used to buy hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of remedies and supplements. Back when I was in the holistic world, I used to spend hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars on organic food, which is basically bullshit. It's a waste of money. Organic food is just less nutrients. You realize the processed food, the GMO, has more nutrients than the organic bullshit? But you're so afraid of chemicals because you understand that there are elements on the periodic tables and you have trace minerals in your body that's needed and you have an immune system to filter out any excessive heavy metals or anything else. That's why you release the demons. You don't have a closed immune system. And so I don't spend thousands and thousands of dollars on remedies and supplements. And I don't live high on the hog. I live so within my means and I still enjoy it. I own this house, yes, but I don't own it, but we pay a mortgage and we pay property taxes. And so who owns anything really? And if you think you own a person, place, or thing, or an animal, you're enslaving. And how well are you taking care of your person, place, or thing, or animal? I work on my brain at home, living so minimally, and I find a way to make myself more of an asset to my husband than a major liability. I do not even take more of his energy than what he can reproduce weekly. Some women are so sexually needy that they suck the life out of their husbands or their wives until that husband is now a shell of himself. No, I won't do that. That's why I say once a week for myself and him is enough so he can reproduce those cells and I can keep maintaining relative wholeness and repair the damage. People don't understand that shit because they grew up with porn. They grew up with all those sexual images and entitlements that because you can have sex and have been traumatized around sex or been shown images, that's what every person is required to do if they get into a relationship, is to give up their body, mind, and spirit to the other person and be the sacrificial lamb to be cannibalized by their significant other. Nope, not in my world. And so I have minimal social reaction because social capital costs money. You want so much social capital? Well, you have to pay for it. You have to pay to have your friends. You have to give them so much attention, buy them so much shit, spend time with them. It costs money to have friends and social capital and social interaction. And can you really afford it in body, mind, and spirit? Some people don't. Some people are so bankrupt in their biology that their friends are sucking the life out of them. But they allow themselves to do that. People allow that to happen. And one thing is, I am not greedy. And I am thankful for what I have and where we are in life. Because we built everything from nothing. Okay? Everything is accounted for. I mean everything. The extras I have, like a computer and a phone, is only to keep lines of communication open with minimal subscription. And when you think about it, I think my presence and contribution pay for my phone and computer and Netflix. Yeah, I get paid for cooking food, keeping us on a specific budget, making sure everything's accounted for, the bills get paid on time. All he has to worry about is to go and have fun with his boat, fix it when he needs it. I let him know if we can afford it or not. He goes to work, does his thing. He doesn't have to worry about me at all. Even when I was sick, he didn't have to worry about me. He had to worry about himself because he was sick too when he was on the truck. Okay, so I actually earn my phone, my computer, and my Netflix subscription. Okay, I earn that shit. Even in a marriage, I'm not entitled to it just because I'm married to somebody. I actually contribute a whole lot that people don't even see because they think, oh, she's not working. She's not, going out there and slogging widgets. No, I am keeping things. I'm keeping my husband's credit score and 100% on-time payments, letting him have his lifestyle because he works for it. And I don't get in the way of it at all. And I don't even bug him to do so. I don't even want him to do more than what he doesn't have. That's the thing. It's like I used to think that going to do things all the time on the weekends and traveling here and traveling there, that was bred into me because every weekend when I grew up, we were always going to different towns and different fairs and different art fairs and other things. So we're always doing something every weekend, hiking and this, which is fine. I've done a lot of that the last 40 something years. But since I've released those demons of habits that are expensive, going out every single weekend is expensive. Okay? Since I've released those demons and disease, I live within my means, I listen to indicators, and I enjoy watching Netflix and understanding the world that I live in. I enjoy reading the internet. I enjoy reading things that I don't know about and learn about stuff. I enjoy speaking. I enjoy just strategizing survival now in this crazy world that is so unpredictable. And so getting my phone and my computer and Netflix is like a salary for whatever I do that he doesn't have to do. I get paid through little things that I get. I do earn my keep. And we built from almost nothing. I avoid taking advantage of my husband's ability to bring home the bacon. And yet he still has many choices. I avoid backing him into a corner. I can live on almost nothing because I release so many demons of disease and desires. Okay? And so when you look at your world, just think of every person in your world, your friend, your family, all of your subscriptions and your addictions and your needs and everything, you will see what are assets and what are liabilities. And sometimes people are liabilities because they have issues that bleed into your world. And sometimes you have to get rid of liabilities in your world. And it's not always fun to get rid of liabilities because people don't see themselves as liabilities. They just see themselves as doing whatever they do and they expect people around them to pick them up when they're down or to fill in. Okay? And it's fine. Well, not really. You got to find people who are relatively self-sufficient. Relatively. And I mean that in so many different ways. Relatively. And so sometimes cutting off the fat in your world will save you so much pain and suffering. And I've done that for many years. I've cut off so much fat for many years. But I also kept enough fat to keep me alive. But I'll tell you, it's worth it when you figure out what are assets and what are liabilities and what you can afford to gain, what you can afford to lose, and then what what is your goal? What's your purpose? All that stuff. And so, yeah, accounting principles are definitely one of the platforms in the J world. Accounting principles. Are you an asset to yourself or are you a liability? Is your is your job an asset or a liability? Drugs are liabilities because they develop offspring that then cause you to be so, even more so in your consumerist addictive behavior. And so when you're doing drugs, those are liabilities. Assets is food. Autonomy is an asset. What are you feeding your brain, your body, your mind, and your spirit? Your immune system is an asset, but if you made it a liability because of all the drugs and the remedies and their surgeries, yeah, when you have so many liabilities, you'll end up bankrupt. And people are right now running bankrupt because they've entertained so many liabilities around them. They're dying. They're dead. And it's not the other people's fault because the person who is now dealing with so much bankruptness or there are so many liabilities in their body, they've allowed the liabilities to run their life and bankrupt them. Once you understand the principles of accounting of your life, the ledger of your life, you might be able to save it. Literally save your life. But you can't have too much and you can't have too little. How do you balance out the assets and the liabilities? And so, yeah, it's time to look deeper now. The system is forcing everyone to look deeper in their spending habits, in all of their habits. And if you choose to not change, you choose to keep entertaining the liabilities in your life, like literally you keep choosing to entertain liabilities in your life, you'll end up bankrupt. You'll end up dying suddenly, or you get a diagnosable condition that you won't have a chance to even treat. And when you're faced with treatment, faced with the choice of a treatment, you could redirect. But when they say, we can't treat it, or we'll give you, this month. See, once people get treated for disease, it's hard to come back from. You have to be a bigger dude with so much substance to survive the treatment and survive not taking any more treatment after that. And that's what I'm saying. Those that don't have a lot of substance to them, yeah, they're surviving on fumes. It will just be a matter of time before the next frequency change, before the predisposed issues come up, unless they choose to start changing their life today. And if people don't know that they don't even know what's going on inside their body because they can't feel it because they're under the influence, then yeah, diet suddenly is in the future for so many people. And I guess that's a better way to go out than suffering through making the choice of getting treated or not getting treated. And when you choose not to get treated because you want to do what I'm doing, do you have what it takes? Does your family support you in this? And when you're up against your family and your friends and the fear and the medical system, yeah, forget it. You're going to have to treat yourself until you die suddenly. And that's what most people are facing right now. That's when the rubber has met the road. And we are in these times right now. We are in the Great Purge. And it sucks to fucking watch. And it sucks to hear about. And this is where I told you, J world. Those in the J world who are doing what I'm doing and can afford it because they have the substance to them. I told you your suffering is going to watch everyone around you suffer through the choices they've made. That's going to be your biggest suffering. And you're going to have to develop a thick skin around it because it's going to be happening even more so. I know what these frequencies are doing from the cell towers, from the phones, from all the antennas. I know what's going on. I can feel it. I felt it last night and I hadn't felt it before. So, yeah. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. You choose. Bye.